climb. So much work to be done, so few soldiers marching on. I can't fight this fight alone. Give me some warriors, Lord, hey, to bear this burden when the work gets hard. Dress for battle with the courage of King David, ready to take this world by storm. Don't give up, dig your heels in, my brother. Hey, hey, help is on the way. Don't take back, no. Keep your eye on the vision. You're a mighty warrior, so be strong and courageous when it seems that the soldiers are weary. Faith is put to test. Wind it up, yes, wind it up, oh yeah. The rock and the giant, let Jesus do the rest. You're a mighty warrior. You're a mighty warrior. So be strong and courageous, mighty warrior. You're a mighty warrior. So be strong and courageous.
Welcome to the premiere of Hope. I am your program director, Corey Henderson, and with me I have Beverly Rivers. She's an author and she's an indie gospel recording artist. She has served in community outreach in the U.S. and abroad, and is the executive director of BCPA Inc. Wow, Bev, or Beverly. I mean, we know each other, but to be formal, Beverly, this project is something very different for you, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is. It really is. And thank you, Corey, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you so much for helping us launch this new program. For the last 20 years, actually over 20 years, BCPA Inc. has reached out in the community face to face. That was the way we did it. We would talk to people live. We would shake their hand. We would pray with them and mingle with the people. But the pandemic changed all that. The pandemic changed it all. And now we are changing too. We have to change if we want to continue to reach the community. So today we are going to discuss a topic, and the topic is hope for our youth, our future. Because our youth, they need to know that there is still hope for them. And even though things are as they are in our world, there's still hope. So we're going to talk about that today. And I've invited two highly esteemed and hard-working educators to share in today's discussion. You met them backstage, right?
Yeah, I had a chance to speak to both of them. They are, I think we'll enjoy today's broadcast simply because they're qualified to talk about the topic. And who better to have than, those who are directly involved with the youth. So what I'll do now is I'll get out of your way. I'll let you continue. I'll go backstage. And when you're ready to bring them on, they'll come on, and you guys, go ahead and have fun with this topic.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Ms. Robinson Brooker.
Ms. Robinson Brooker earned her BA in American Multicultural Studies at Sonoma State, an education specialist credential with master's work in special education at Chapman Brandman University, and an AA in liberal arts from Solano College. Ms. Brooker has served as a district case manager for youth with special needs over 16 years, the most recent years in and around the Monterey Peninsula. She also teaches part-time and helped rewrite the curriculum for the NASA STEAM Saturday Academy, partnered with NASA Ames Research Center and Hartnell College.
Since 1995, she has worked with diverse student populations that parallel the nations of the world and managed the staff assigned to assist in the instruction to students. Ms. Brooker is an advocate for the youth, encouraging effective communication between school staff, students, parents, and members of the school community. During collaborations with general education teachers, she conceptualizes guidelines and practices within special education accommodations and modifications and instruction for home and hospital students. In addition, she has received numerous recognitions throughout her career and has served as an elected officer of the Teachers Union. Ms. Brooker is a champion who loves the Lord Jesus Christ and is fulfilling her purpose as an educator for eternity, teaching whenever she can. Please help me welcome to the program Ms. Robinson Brooker. Hi there.
Hello.
How
What
are
a
you?
wonderful introduction. I was
Wow.
wondering who that was you were speaking of.
Oh my goodness. As I was reading it, I was like, that is a lot. That is a lot of work that you're doing with the young people and with other educators.
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
applaud you. I
Thank
really
you so
do.
much. Thank you so much.
Yes, thanks for your service. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to also bring our second guest on. So if you can stand by while I introduce our second guest.
Absolutely.
Dr. Michael Tennyson has a PhD in curriculum and instruction from the University of Missouri, an MS in biology from the University of North Dakota, an MA in missiology from the Assemblies of God Theological Seminary, and a BA in biology from UCLA. He is a professor of biology and chair of the Department of Natural and Applied Sciences at Evangel University, where he has taught for more than 35 years. Initially trained as a field behavioral ecologist, he has done field research on birds, frogs, porcupines, lizards, and snails. His current research examines attitudes and beliefs of people related to science and theology. He is also an ordained minister with the Assemblies of God. Dr. Tennyson has authored or co-authored numerous papers and presentations. He is married to another biologist, Cheryl, and has 3 children, Gabriel, Joshua, and Anna, and 3 beautiful grandchildren, Cadence, Constance, and Chloe. Please help me welcome to the program Dr. Michael Tennyson.
Well, thank you, Beverly and new friends. I'm so enjoying already our kind of behind the scenes conversations, and I am honored that you've asked me to participate in this. I know I have some letters behind my name, but I still feel very humbled and inadequate. But I'm happy to be here to share what I can to contribute to the really important questions that you're raising.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, sir. I mean, it is my honor to have both of you on this premiere broadcast because I believe that educators see our youth in a different light than a parent does, even. I mean, you see them from a different angle, and therefore you have some insight and some wisdom that you can share with the people surrounding those young people that will help them to hold their head up and keep walking on. So that is my hope for this broadcast today. So with that, I'm going to get the discussion started. Okay, just an abstract statement, and I just want to get your, how you might respond to this statement or what you feel about it, whether you believe it's true or not true, and tell me what you think. So if I were to say it's not easy to be a youth or a young adult, what would be your response to that? Do you agree or disagree? Start with Ms. Brooker. She looks like she's deep in thought.
Uh, Ms. Rivers and Beverly, I have to totally agree. Having raised 3 children myself and having 3 grandchildren, I often say I'm very glad that my children are adults. It's a different time, it's a different world than when any of us were in elementary school, for sure. And there's so much to add on to that, but absolutely, it has to be challenging for many, for so many different reasons. At home, responsibilities, social media, cell phones, devices. I'll just stop there.
So it's not easy. Okay, so you agree with that statement?
I do.
Yeah. So Dr. Tennyson, what do you think about that statement?
I think each era has had its own challenges for young people. I kind of thought about this as just transculturally and transgenerationally. Is it easy to be a young person? And I think no. I think maybe even if you're in a pretty stable environment and things aren't going as crazy as they are in our culture, it's really difficult because most people don't handle change too well. And this age group has been subject to forces, not just the current young people, but I mean, when we were young, there were forces that were beyond our control, and
Yes.
some people are very adaptable and naturally, and others are very resistant. But I think all of us do have times where it's difficult to adapt.
Yeah.
And so I just think this age group could have a hard time because they're developing independence, but they don't have the tools yet to be independent. And some of them are learning to think on their own, and others are being forced to hold views maybe that they don't understand why that's what our family believes and things like that. That's probably been happening a long time.
Yes, I agree with you on that. I agree with both of you. What if I kind of tweaked that statement a little bit and I said, it's not easy to be a youth or young adult in today's environment? By saying today's environment, I'm thinking of all the things that's been happening in the news, all of the racial unrest that's been going on, all of the things about war, things about pandemic, things about food shortages, just everything that's going on. Things about guns and school violence. I mean, that's what I mean when I say in today's environment. How would you respond to that? Would you agree, disagree? Do you think that adds any more stress to the mix? And that's kind of what I'm asking.
Well, I'll go ahead and respond first, if that's okay.
Sure.
I do think I concur with everything that Dr. Mike has so beautifully articulated. But in today's environment, I think that from my observation and my perspective, because certainly you're asking us based on our experience and our relationship and our connection, how we see things, it certainly would appear that the violence in schools has escalated. It certainly would appear that students, at least that are in school, it doesn't even matter what age, elementary, middle school, or high school, where there's so much into technology and social media, the isolation that is perpetuated as a result of that. You would think with all of the wisdom in the technology today, there's more information out now than has ever been in the history of our civilization. Yet you have young people who don't seem to know what to do all the time, who don't seem to know who to talk to. Now, I will step back and say, I truly always believe that the family, the mother and father, the nurturing unit that the child grows up in is the first teacher.
Right.
The very first teacher. And depending on what cushions and what exposure and what information that child or student is fed from the time they're born until the time they enter the other institution of academia plays a huge role from the time that they're in school until the time they leave. I mean, they come home, they have homework. If they don't have homework, there are other things that maybe they should be doing to brush up on study skills or organization skills. But to hone it in today's environment, because of what's going on in families, in communities, in the overall society, in the state, in the government, in the world, I would have to say yes. It's probably a little bit more difficult, more challenging. However, the family unit makes the difference.
Yes. Okay. Dr. Tennyson?
Oh, well said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really like the way you said that. I agree with you. I'm working with college-age students more than younger, although one of the favorite activities I still get to do is teach a Sunday morning class for 3-year-olds. And I have people sometimes ask me, it must be really hard to teach a 3-year-old class on one day and then a class with 18 to 22-year-olds on another day. And I've learned we're not that different. I mean, people are people, and we have our needs for acceptance and love and safety and security. It's just expressed differently. But so I don't have as much intimate work with the young people that we're talking about, the younger ones. 18 to 22, I'm quite familiar with. But we do know that this generation, if we want to call them Gen Z, is a common catchphrase. They're very socially connected, which in many ways is a good thing, but they're at the same time more anxious than any generation that's ever come before them. Sociologists are, of course, trying to identify why this is, and a lot of it is thought to be because they don't feel like they have much control. And it's a scary place with the violence and the racial challenges and the political unrest and wars on the other side of the world. And on the other hand, they have more access to technology than anyone's ever had before.
True.
They're more able to be aware of what's really happening moment by moment than I mean, my parents relied on the evening news and the newspaper, right? And radio. Well, but then the bad news is, although they have access to the technology that gives them instant access, they also can filter it themselves. And I don't want to see the things that I don't want to learn about. I'm only going to look at these TikToks, or I'm only going to participate in this social media.
Right.
I think that we found that young people are having a difficult time because oftentimes they feel entitled and they aren't very resilient. Evidence is that when bad things happen to this generation, it's not uncommon for them to kind of give up. Whereas, and I don't know what your parents were like. We are from different backgrounds and parts of the country. And I know in some of us, but I know that, like if I fell and cut my knee as a kid, the first thing my mom would say, "Don't bleed on the carpet." And it wasn't like, "Oh no, don't cry," and I'm gonna fix your boo-boo. It's stay outside, don't bleed on the carpet. You remember where the Band-Aids are, right? So some researchers have called the parents of this generation snowplow parents or lawnmower parents. In other words, they're blowing the snow out of the path so their children can walk down the path. And like a lawnmower, how when you run a pusher mower and it cuts this narrow path through the grass. Well, that's where my kids are going to walk. And so it looks like, although there are some families that aren't engaged at all, a lot in their kids' lives, There are others that are, we used to call, so I deal with helicopter parents a fair amount, like they're hovering and, are you sure that's the right thing to do, Dr. Tennyson, for, to study mitosis? And I think
Even though they're 20 years old, they're 20 years old and they're still got helicopter parents?
and that, yes. And the helicopter motif is shifting to snowplow. I'm not kidding. So,
wow.
The idea that my parents helped me do my homework in school and everything, not just helped me when I got stuck, but like, here, I'll do part of it for you. And then, okay, you're tired. Here, I'll finish it up for you.
Wow. Wow. That's something. I'm almost surprised to hear that for a college age person, that they'd have helicopter parents, snowplow parents that are actually, what came to my mind when you gave those descriptions is like a butterfly that's in a cocoon. I mean, the caterpillar that's in the cocoon. Mm-hmm. And when he is in his stages of development, you can't just like take the cocoon off of him when he's struggling to get out. Otherwise, he will not ever be able to fly. And that's kind of what's happening to these kids if the parent is too busy hovering over, not ever letting them fall down, not ever letting them struggle with anything. So yeah, that's something else.
There might be a song in that, Beverly.
Oh, I'm sure.
Somebody in this group is a songwriter, so
I'm sure there is one in there. Well, there's a book in that.
Beverly, if I could interject, that's almost, I see exactly what Dr. Mike is saying, and almost the opposite, where there's no parental support.
Yeah.
Because of so many of the different curriculums that have come down, especially with math, where parents, they don't know how to help their students.
Right.
Even some of the things that they need to learn in English, some of the basics. I get 11th and 12th graders who don't know basic things. So there's quite a gap. Quite a gap.
Wow.
We're seeing it for entrance into college. We're seeing a trend rather than like a bell curve of, skills like on, I don't know, SAT or high school grades. It's becoming bimodal, where there's a lot of kids that are really doing poorly, and there's another group of kids that are doing well, but the ones in the middle, that number is declining.
Yes.
Wow.
What you're saying is right. There's a disparity growing. And I think the parental involvement is a huge factor. And these poor young people that are having to make their own way,
that's right.
They've got that opposite problem. They're trying to walk through this field of hay with no tools.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah.
So interesting. Well, that statement that we've been working on, I'm just going to take it to another level and add one word to it. What if I said, it's not easy to be a Christian youth or young adult in today's environment? Dr. Tennyson, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. This is a very serious question to me, being a scientist who's also a Christ follower, and I've had a lot of opportunity to be asked to explain how can I be that, because our society's done a pretty good job at making it seem like you're either a person who embraces the scientific story, or you are a person of faith. You can't really do both. And so I really love your question of a young person who's a Christ follower trying to thrive in this environment. In 2016, the Barna Group published a pretty famous study based on surveying a lot of young people. They were asking questions of Christians, non-Christians, Christian young people, and then people who are like Christian friendly but not practicing very much. So, and they found some interesting things that might help us put a point on this question. So one of the questions they asked is what are barriers for your age group for Christian faith? What is it that keeps people from embracing Christianity? The greatest percent answer, 29% of the respondents said the problem of evil.
The problem of evil.
Why do bad things happen to good people?
Okay.
And look at the lives they're leading. Look at their family and friends that were innocent. They were not minding their own business, and then they got bullied, or they got assaulted, or and they're young people. They haven't even had a chance to really make many choices. So that doesn't surprise me. There are some very famous atheistic scientists who have the same reason why they've rejected God. Their religion or their experience with religious people failed to answer that question. Why do bad things happen to good people? And that's with young people too. Barna found that 23% responded with this answer: Christians are hypocrites. Remember, these are answers.
And some of them are. I mean, how can you say anything when it's true?
Right, and so these are reasons why they're saying me and my friends aren't becoming Christians because, right? 20% said, I think science refutes too much of the Bible. So there's a misconception that science and the Bible don't match. 19% said, I don't believe in fairy tales. Such a sad statement of not maybe having dreams. I don't know what they mean by fairy tales, but boy. Anyway, too many injustices in Christianity. I had a bad experience at church with a Christian. The church rejects much of what science says. So these are, I think, some of the reasons why Christian young people are struggling. Or let's maybe look at another way is young people are struggling to embrace Christianity for some of these reasons. It's why do bad things happen to good people, and why is there so much injustice? And I get it. Those are hard questions.
Those are hard questions. And just, before you respond, Ms. Brooker, I was looking at another article about the struggles that college-age students face. And it was pointed out that a lot of Christian kids enter into college like a secular type college environment, and then they are kind of drawn away from the Christian faith by professors who are not Christians, who may be atheists, who may be agnostic, and they are just they're put down for their Christian faith. So they're trying to fit in with everyone else just so they can get through their college work. So I was like, being stuck in that environment can, you have to stand up and deliver, and you're going to get put down, you're going to get bullied. And that's something that's happening too, when they're not in a university like the one where you teach, where their Christianity is, embraced. Yes. Yeah. So Ms. Brooker, what are your thoughts on that statement?
Well, first off, being a public school employee, I do not work in a religious sector or a religious institution in teaching. I, as a teacher, teach all different students with different faiths, different beliefs. And my colleagues equally are very different with different faiths and different beliefs. However, as a teacher, I have been very humbled and very much aware that whatever a student and their family believe, if they want to speak it, if they want to talk about it, I embrace the student and their own individuality without judgment, because my job as an agent of change, as someone who I really, really relish connections and relationships with anyone that I'm going to be working with for the better part of a day. Um, I have not come across very many students who profess to be Christians in the classroom. However, I have had a few. I have had a few who have been eager to share their beliefs with me. And often students will ask teachers about their own beliefs. And I'm very mindful that my encouragement to them is my belief and my practice is my own and it's personal. And I'll be happy to talk to you about it after school hours. That is nothing that I do during the school day. Now, knowing that I have taught students who profess to be Christians, I think I'm going to go back to the family unit. I think it really depends on what their family has instilled in them, because that's been evident with me. I'm remembering a certain instance with a young man who had early just come from middle school and came to high school, and his grandmother, I believe, was raising him, and she let people know that she was a staunch Christian. And she raised her family to be that way. And the young man was struggling with identity issues. And for me, I just embraced the young man for who he was. Very, very humbled that he saw me as an advocate for him, as someone that made him feel safe. And so I was very grateful for the relationship that I established with that young man. And again, as I said, in my 16 years, I have taught students of many faiths. Not very many profess that they are Christians, but I will say this: many of them have talked about Jesus. Many of them have brought up Jesus in the classroom. And that's been interesting when we've had those discussions.
May I ask something right there?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when you say they have talked about Jesus, do you mean mentioning a Bible verse, a Bible story, or are they is it in a derogatory way?
Not in a derogatory way at all. In fact, I'm recalling a conversation maybe a few years ago, and even as recently as last semester, where a couple of students were talking about their grandmother and their abuelita, because I teach students many students whose first language is Spanish, and how their abuelita would talk to them about Jesus and going to not mass all the time, although many of them were Catholic, but it was something different in worshiping in their home, and which I thought that was pretty cool. Even though those students didn't do it, it was at their grandmother's house. The families where they live, their mother and father, oh no, they're not religious. They don't do that, Miss Brooker. We would have maybe a reading from one of the books, and we were asking about some similarities in traditions and something that somebody would do maybe regularly or consistently or annually. And I always like to bring a student's perspective or their interest or what they're doing to make the lesson relevant. Right. And I fondly remember them bringing up Jesus and the abuelita and what she does and how they respect that.
Yes.
And they remember that because I didn't bring it up. They did, even though they don't always do it or their parents don't. What that tells me is whatever the grandmother is doing, like they may be on the hook. There may be some interest so that as they get older, they'll learn certain things that maybe would sway them into learning a little bit more about the faith.
Wonderful. Interesting. Well, it's interesting to see the contrast between a learning institution that is Christian and embraces Christianity and a learning institution whereby that has to be departmentalized. That's what I'm going to call it. Kind of, you can't. There's certain rules and do's and don'ts about what you can and cannot say in a classroom and do in a classroom. And so, yeah, that's what we're dealing with. And when I considered this question about it's not easy to be a Christian youth or a young adult in today's environment, I just feel like we should give the youth a break, kind of like what Dr. Tennyson said near the beginning of this discussion. It's like everybody who professes to be a Christian is having a difficult time. And it's not easy to be a youth or young adult in any era or in any faith, because when you are a Christian, of course, now you have that layer of responsibility to do what Jesus does. That's, to live as Jesus has given us that example. And so as you are trying to do all the other things, that is another layer. And it's not only a challenge for youth and young adult, but it's a challenge for every Christian. So I'm just saying that out loud to give the kids a break, because the things that we are expected to live by and to be like as a Christian, even as an adult, they're not easy things. It's not easy to be honest all the time. It's not easy to be kind all the time. It's not easy to forgive. It's not easy to be spiritually pure. We deal with that. There are adults who deal with drug and alcohol abuse, and they're having so much stress, and they would really love to just go have a drink and just be blasted. So they're the same. Some of the same challenges that the youth are going through. Grown-ups are going through them too. And so I just kind of wanted to put that thought in there, because I feel like the youth should get a little bit of a break, and we shouldn't just it's not like they're just always messing up, they're just always got issues. No, we all have issues, and we're working these things out together.
You're a mighty warrior. You're a mighty warrior. So be strong and courageous, mighty warrior. You're a mighty warrior. So be strong and courageous.
Well, hello again. Thank you for joining in with us today for this discussion about our youth, hope for our youth, our future. And I hope that you have been enjoying listening to Dr. Tennyson and also Ms. Brooker as they share their thoughts and concerns about our youth today and what we might be able to do for them and help them to rise up to the occasion. Now, this video turned out to be longer than we thought. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back next week with part 2 of this discussion. You don't want to miss that, because there are some nuggets in there at the end that will really bless your heart. So with that said, I am going to say thank you so much for being a part of this premiere broadcast. And I hope that you will subscribe, that you would tell a friend. People have asked me, what can we do to support what you're doing in this new venture? And I'm telling you, the best thing you could do is tell a friend and help me reach 1,000 viewers on our YouTube channel. That is the main thing you can do, because those who want to give, they will. But I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for your presence. Your presence is the most important thing that we could have right at this time. So thank you once again, and we will see you next week on Hope, Heartful Outreach, Positive Encouragement. Until next time, bye-bye.